Hey, welcome back to the videos. We've been looking at playing Scruggs style banjo in 3/4 time. The first video had some really basic information about what 3/4 time is as compared to the other time signatures. We looked at some patterns that you can use for the right hand to just get you accustomed to how it feels to basically start playing some notes in 3/4 time with 3 fingers. Now in this video I'd like to move forward into adding a few left hand ornaments here in the beginning of the video. We know that we have to incorporate left and right hand together to be able to play basically any kind of banjo. In Scruggs style you'll still have the same ornaments for the left hand, same techniques, slides, hammers, pull-offs, push-offs, chokes. All those things are still valid, your chord shapes are still the same. So nothing really changes about those techniques or ornaments, whatever you like to call them, from any one kind of timing signature. So you can play slides in any kind of timing signature, common time, cut time, 6/8, 2/4, 3/4, 5/4, doesn't matter. It's always the same thing. The only thing that really changes for you as a Scruggs style player is the syncopation changes slightly when you try to incorporate some ideas. You may decide to slide in a slightly different place than you would because you're playing 3 beats a measure as opposed to 4. But other than that, there's nothing physically different about playing any of these things with the left hand, which is great. So you don't have to learn any new techniques. Everything still applies. So I'm going to fire up the metronome about 100 beats a minute in 3/4 time, and we're going to try playing some basic things with the right hand and incorporating a few things. I'll start with slides. Slide into a full-fledged roll. And so on, you get the idea. And I'm just using these forward rolls because they're a pretty easy place to start, but I've mixed in some kind of modified alternating thumb roll, just like we did in the first video. I've tried to move over from the 3rd to the 4th to the 2nd string. You can try backwards rolls, reverse rolls, forward rolls, alternating thumb modifications. You can do basically anything that you already know from Scruggs style you can modify for this kind of exercise. But the main thing that we're focusing on here is getting the left hand things synced up with the right hand things. Now, once you get to that point and you can actually decide consciously, I want to roll through this measure, or I want to mix rolls with, say, quarter note pinches, or 8th note roll with quarter notes, and as we talked about before, we typically, when we roll continually through measures of 3/4 time in Scruggs style, we're doing 6 8 notes instead of 8 notes. So we have 6 notes for 3 beats. And if you do that, you can still incorporate slides and hammers and all those things. And the goal would be for you as a player to make a decision to mix up ideas or to roll continually or whatever you feel like doing, because when you listen to Scruggs play these classic solos, you'll find out that he mixed a lot of different ideas together. He didn't roll continually without any pauses. He didn't play continually without arrests. He didn't play continual rolls without pinches at some point. He didn't play continual rolls without using some kind of filler lick. Even though it's 3/4 time, he still had filler licks that were designed to work in this pulse. So I think for the purposes of this video, it would be great if we could examine one of his classic solos. One of my favorite 3/4 time songs that Flat Scruggs ever did was Before I Met You, and that's actually one of my favorite songs in bluegrass. And it was the first song I learned to play way back in the early 70s as a kid banjo player on the banjo, and it was from their original recording of that. So I won't bring up the recording here because I might run into some copyright issues not getting permission to use that recording. But if you want to go back and look at Before I Met You on probably a Mercury session, maybe in the mid-50s, you'll hear that Earl and the fiddle player pretty much take a break based on a verse of the song. Fiddle takes the first half of the verse as his solo, Earl takes the second half, and then they repeat that process later in the song. So Earl gets to play backup in places like always, but his solo will be the exact same solo, which is the second half of the verse. So I'm going to sing a little bit of the melody just in case you're not familiar with it, and if you aren't, you definitely need to check this out because it's a great song. I thought I had seen pretty girls in my time. That was before I met you. I never found one that I wanted for mine. That was before I met you. And then they go into the chorus. So Earl's break was the second half. I never found one that I wanted for mine. That was before I met you. And the only difference, if you really analyze it, the only difference between the melody in the first half and the second half of a phrase is the D chord, if you play it in, or the 5 chord, if you want to get technical, is played twice as long. It's twice as many measures as the next time. So Earl's break cuts the last chord of the song off slightly shorter. Now let's look at the melody. Earl will play the melody with primarily 6-note rolls, but he does mix in a few ornaments. He has a slide and a push-off, but he won't play any full chord shapes or really any partials, and he sticks to the melody pretty closely, but he takes a couple of bluesy artistic liberties with the melody. So if I match up what Lester would sing with what Earl would play here, we have something like this. I never found one that I wanted for mine, but that was before I met you. Filler. Rests. Then the chorus comes in. So let's slow that down. I thought I had seen. So if you listen to the key notes in the flow of the 6-note rolls, I have a slide, which was what Earl used. I thought. So the 2 to 4 slide is the word thought, and that rolls across those measures. I thought I had seen. All of those notes, those lyrics, represent the same note. I thought I had seen. So you're trying to represent B notes. I thought I had seen. So Earl uses 3, 2, 1, 5, 2, 1, 5 to represent those melody notes. So the B string becomes your primary melody note string. But again, this is 3/4 time, so you got to syncopate to emphasize 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I thought I had seen pretty. So he'll come out of that into the word pretty, and he does a little inflection with a blues note, push off from 3 to 2. And then 3rd string open. Now he takes another blues liberty here. And again, if you listen to Lester's, I never found one that I wanted for mine. He doesn't play that blues note, but Earl decides to drop it in there. Takes a little liberty with it, but still it's 95% correct and matches what, Lester's saying. And then he'll have a little filler roll. And then he'll use this slide. That was 4, 3, 1, 5, 3, 1 represents that was, but that was before I met. And there's your D chord section. Before I met you. And then he has this pretty cool, which is single string lick that you would use in common time. couple of quarter note pinches as filler. And then a forward roll, or 3-2-1-5. And then he cuts a few notes off, so normally you go 3-2-1-5, 1-2-3 as an 8th note pattern. Right, but since he's playing this over 3 beats, he just decides to chop a few notes off and end it with a push off. So I'm going to bring up the camera controls here and just zoom in on the left hand. That's pretty much all there is to the solo, and when you analyze it like that, you think, well, there's not a lot going on, and there's not. I mean, there's no complicated right hand patterns, just modifications of things you already know how to do to adapt to 3 beats of measure instead of 4 or instead of 2 or whatever, and the same ornaments that you've always learned with the right hand, slides and hammers and push-offs, chucks, all those are intact. But it's just fitting the flow of that into 3 beats, into that pulse, which means syncopating slightly differently. And then you have Earl solo before I Met You. Now let's play that with a metronome and see if I can zoom in again so you can hear and see that played together. Here we go. Okay, John, that's pretty cool. What if I decided I didn't want to play that note for note like Earl? Well, then I would say, shame on you. No, I wouldn't. I would say that's cool. You can also do your own stamp on this. I don't know why my camera won't pull back. I'm going the wrong way. There we go. Sorry. I've got multiple windows open on the computer. That's actually pretty cool because you learn a lot from copying Earl, and I highly recommend that if you want to be a serious Scruggs player, and I should put this in flashing red letters on the screen right now, yes, you should copy Earl Scruggs to learn what he's doing and how he's doing and how that should sound. But you should not try to be a clone of Earl Scruggs. No clones. But if you want to learn how to play 3/4 time in Scruggs style, what better place to start than listening to Earl play his style in 3/4 time? So I'll get off my soapbox now, but you'll hear a lot of different opinions about how to learn to play in 3/4 time in bluegrass. But if you're a Scruggs style player, it's probably a good idea to learn the same way that all these other famous players learn, which is copying Earl because it's his style, right? So definitely check out the original recording. Don't depend on my interpretation here. But let's say we wanted to have a little fun with it to close out this video. We could actually change up the flow of the notes. We could play with some durations. Changed a few things. I put a pinch at the end of a roll pattern instead of rolling continually like Earl did, and then going into that. So I would advise you to play around with the melody once you've got Earl's version pretty well intact and you can roll through it and you've got the gist of it. Then have some fun. Mix in some pinches, some quarter notes, mix in some 16ths. You can actually throw triplets into 3/4 time pretty easily. So maybe in the next video we'll kind of ramp up and look at some of his other solos, or maybe do a few more little advanced ideas, but this will give you a good starting point for playing a real solo in Scruggs style in 3/4 time just like Earl played it. So I appreciate it. We'll see you next video. Thanks.